Metroid. Yeah. Even just hearing the name of that franchise is enough to get people excited. It's just a catalog of good games in the Metroid series. It's one of Nintendo's biggest franchises, along with Mario and Zelda. Not quite up to their level, but, close behind. What makes Metroid notable is its innovation on games today. It's one half of the Metroidvania genre, and it was doing it before Castlevania ever thought of becoming that second half. Metroid is about exploration and atmosphere, first and foremost. And I'm excited to talk about the series. I've been a fan ever since I first played through Super Metroid a long time ago. So, which of these classics do I get to play first? Oh, alright. The first Metroid, of course. You gotta get that one out of the way. Let me just say this. I don't think the original Metroid is a bad game, but it's showing its age. The game's nearly 40 years old, for heaven's sake. And fun fact, the Disk System version came out on my birthday, August 6, 1986. Some neat trivia. But no one actually cares about that. Anyways, the game doesn't hold up. You don't want to play this game if you don't have the Metroid experience. You would play Super Metroid for that. Or you play Zero Mission, which is a remake of this one. This game's a bit more like a relic at this point. It's a redundancy. But if I want to start talking about Metroid, it's best to do it here, as the game does set innovations that become series standards from then on. So, let's take a dive into Metroid and the NES. Even just booting up the game for the first time, the title theme just sets the mood brilliantly. This title music is in most of the Metroid games. It's emblematic of the Metroid series. It's foreboding, but eventually it does pick up into a more hopeful melody. I like to think it represents Samus's journey, starting out weak, but picking up her stride as she gets more abilities. But enough about the music. You don't want to hear me talk about music all day, do you? Well, if you do, you're in the wrong place. It's a game review. So you start Metroid, you run to the left, and you grab the Morph Ball. And I feel like that really makes the game stand out, because at the time, I think people were just used to games scrolling over to the right. Mario scrolled over to the right. I mean, Zelda didn't, but Zelda was at around the same time. You just have like platformers like Mario that you just run right. So to have a side-scrolling game like this, have this freedom of movement, was revolutionary. Unfortunately, this is also where one of the game's main issues strikes. Metroid is all about exploration, as everybody should know. You go somewhere, you get stuck, you go elsewhere, you find an item, and then you can come back to that spot and progress through using your new item. The basic gameplay loop works, but the problem with this game is that every area looks the exact same. You climb this tower, you go through a transition, and then you just climb in the same tower, but it's orange this time. And there's so many more places like this in the game. It makes getting lost that much easier. I think Metroid needs, defining features that, stand out in the level design, which we'll get to later in the series, but this game doesn't do that. And let's talk about the gigantic elephant in the room. There's no map in this game. I feel like it's just essential for any Metroid game, heck, any Metroidvania game, to have at least some form of a map. And I get this game is a pioneer of the Metroidvania game before that even existed, but some foresight should have been in place. What makes this game especially cruel is rooms that look the exact same as other ones. Even if you happen to follow a map online or through Nintendo Power or whatever, you can still just easily get lost because you mistake one room for another. It's, again, it needs defining features. It's just, the controls in this game are very slippery as well. You have A to jump, B to shoot. If you hold a direction when jumping, Samus spins. It's neat. If you press select, you can fire missiles, which are more powerful than your standard shot but are a finite resource. You find them in packs of 5 scattered across the game. You also find energy tanks, which increase your maximum health. I think something that sucks about the energy tanks is that every time you start the game, you have 30 health. By that I mean 30 units of health, with all your tanks empty. That's fine at the start of the game. You barely have any health. As you progress and get more E-tanks, that gap between 30 and your maximum becomes smaller and smaller. And that beeping that plays when your health gets really low is super annoying. It just makes you want to throw yourself into a pit to stop hearing it. Turn it off! Shut up! Other upgrades you can find enhance Samus's movement. I already mentioned the Morph Ball, which allows you to shrink into a ball and crawl through tight spaces. There's also bombs, which can be used to blow open parts of the land as an attack for smaller enemies. High jump boots do exactly what you think they do, and the iconic Screw Attack and Varia Suit make their first appearance here. There's also the different beams. The long beam lets you shoot at a longer distance. I'm not sure why that isn't a default. And the others enhance the beam's capabilities. One is the Ice Beam, which lets you freeze enemies and stand on them like platforms. The other is the Wave Beam, which goes through walls and is better at combat than the Ice Beam ever is. Unfortunately, you can't stack the two beams, but well, I'm gonna let the game slide that time. There are 4 areas for you to explore. Brinstar and Norfair are where you get most of your power-ups, and when you're ready, you can venture into the layers of Kraid and Ridley. This game's atmosphere is impeccable. It's something the game actually got right the first time. It really does feel like you're exploring a desolate alien planet. The music by Hip Tanaka, as the credits claim, also helps. Brinstar's theme is an awesome tune that gets you in the mood to kick some ass. The item room theme feels empty with a sense of unease to it. Something's in the darkness in the background, ready to jump out at any moment. And my favorite song would have to be Kraid's Lair, a haunting waltz that feels like it echoes throughout the hallways you traverse. The music might be the thing holding this game together. It really works to set a mood that's unlike any other on the console. Your main objective in this game, besides collecting power-ups and exploring, is to kill the 2 bosses, Kraid and Ridley. They're hiding out in their lairs, and there's one thing in this game that sucks. It's the bosses. The strategy for both is pretty much just walk up and shoot missiles and win. And there's no variance, really. Sure, they function differently, but there's no strategy to these bosses. They're just bullet sponges. They're simply a requirement on your checklist. Just bigger, beefier enemies for you to kill, rather than, you know, something that really makes you think like the later games. However, that being said, they are a requirement. You need to shoot their statues to get into the final area, Torian. And we'll get back to that, but, you know, not right now. Something I don't really appreciate is some of the cruel moments in the level design. There's of course that classic E-Tank in Ridley's area, where there's an invisible pit that drops you into a lower area if you don't know exactly where to jump. But there's hidden pits all around the game, and there's times where you're forced to loop through the areas multiple times just to collect a couple items. And this looping is more tedious than it is rewarding. It really sucks, and in tandem with the fact that it's so easy to get lost, you could just be looping through the same areas trying to find a specific item or getting lost because every area just looks the exact same. The only thing left to speak about is Turian. I mean, I covered everything else, didn't I? This is where the mechanical life vein, Mother Brain, resides. Oh, I forgot to mention the story. It's one screen at the title screen. Very poorly translated. Also not really a factor in this game. It's really not. Torian is also where you find the titular Metroids, these giant green floating monsters that latch onto your head and they suck your life force. They're truly terrifying creatures. Imagine seeing one for the first time, having no clue how to beat them, being forced to just die over and over. It would probably traumatize some poor kid. Of course, you need to freeze them with the Ice Beam and shoot them with missiles. This makes the Ice Beam one of the only items required to beat the game. However, the real terror of Torian is not the Metroids. It's these damned rings that hit you when you're busy traversing between screens. Which is another problem with this game I forgot to mention, but oh my god, the enemies can just hit you through transitions. It's stupid. They're annoying. And they continue to annoy you into the final boss, which is Mother Brain, of course. A stationary brain in a capsule, protected by these meat walls you need to shoot with missiles. She would be really easy if it wasn't for these stupid rings knocking you all over the place. They look like Cheerios. They're the true villain, is the Cheerios. When you do finally blow up Mother Brain, a self-destruct sequence activates, and you're forced to escape before you get blown to smithereens, which would become a tradition for the series. In the ending, Samus stands on the planet and the game tells you that you fulfilled your mission to maintain peace in space. But it may be invaded by the other Metroid. What? Then Samus takes your suit off in a moment that was very revolutionary back in the day. Up to this point, most notable video game protagonists have been male. But if you were quick enough to beat Metroid, you saw that Samus is actually a woman the whole time. I believe this is the other part of the reason the Metroid series took off like it did. Rumors would be spread about how Samus is actually a girl, and other rumors spiraled off, like how Samus could be in a bikini if you beat the game in under an hour. Well, that's ridiculous. There's no... Oh. Well, apparently that's real. I never managed to do it. That seems like an incredible feat. Under an hour, wow. You should give yourself a pat on the back if you ever managed to do that. But, as I was saying, this created a sense of intrigue around the game. People are talking about how maybe if you beat the game just a little bit faster, she'd take more off. And as crude as that really is, it led to the birth of speedrunning. That's right. You thought I was going to hold off on it until Super Metroid, but even this early we can see the roots. People wanted to beat the game faster and faster. They tried new methods and learned how to bend the game, so they could just achieve that goal. You don't even need to beat Kraid and Ridley, apparently. You can just do whatever this is. And if you beat the game once, you can go through it again, but Samus doesn't have a suit. I guess the planet just has oxygen or something. And with that, I think I'm ready to give Metroid my ranking. I'll rate Metroid a 6 out of 10, my lowest ranking so far. As I said at the beginning, I don't think Metroid is necessarily a bad game, but its flaws definitely outnumber its strengths, and later games do what it does much better. If you want to play this game, don't play it. Go play Zero Mission. It's better. The original Metroid serves as more of a time capsule for back then, and not something worth going back to in modern times. And that's my review of Metroid. Let me know what you think about this game in the comments. As for the next game I'd like to review, it's another so-called classic, the original Legend of Zelda, also for NES. I was going to do that game first, but it's a fair bit longer and, well, a lot of things have been happening in my life. With that said, I'm excited to talk more about Metroid and Zelda in the future. The next game in the Metroid series, Metroid 2, is on the Game Boy, so it'll be my first review off the NES. Rejoice! I don't have to talk about a game that's on the 40-year-old toaster that outright refuses to run games sometimes. I'm also excited to take a look at Zelda 1, which I haven't played in a while, but I don't remember being very fond of. However, before I do Zelda 1, I'm working on a very special video, and I'd like to get it out before the end of the year. It's a ranking. It's a top 10 ranking of Super Nintendo games. Like, my top 10 Super Nintendo games, like the best Super Nintendo games. I mean, I didn't have to repeat it like 3 or so times there, but yeah, I'm gonna start working on that because the Super Nintendo is actually my favorite console. So, as a love letter, I would really like to cover some of those games. Not full review, of course. It's just a ranking, but that's what I'm gonna do in the future. I'm not going to do Zelda 1 right now. I might do Zelda 1 after that, though. Probably will do it after that, actually. But yeah, I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. Take care and see ya!